my name is Annalise. I'm going to be answering the questions for the second video diary. The first one is, can you think of a time that you were struggling with something and talk with someone about your doubts or fears and felt heard? And immediately the first thing that came to my mind was actually when I was opening up to someone about wanting to pursue ministry as my schooling, as my college, and I remember opening up to my youth pastor's wife about it because I felt so scared, I felt so ashamed. I had talked about it with my parents and they were not the most accepting of it, they were not the most receiving of it, and they kind of discouraged me in doing it and made it seem like I would never be able to do it and pushed me away from it. And so I opened up to my youth pastor's wife about it and really just cried with her. I just remember crying in her arms at like emotion night and telling her I don't feel like I can do this. I have all these things that have been spoken over me that are making me think I'm incapable and that I could never be able to do something like this. And so it was a moment that I was crying out, and she heard me, she felt my emotions with me, she held me, and she really just reversed all those words of death that were spoken over me. And I appreciate her so much from that, because I felt heard after that encounter. I felt heard after that conversation, and not only that, but I felt loved and cared by. The second question is, how could a distorted perception of God's character make a difference in my own or someone else's healing or freedom? And with this, I think of how that can affect us in evangelizing. And so I think of so many times and so many stories that I've heard of someone who will go out and evangelize or try and share their faith with someone, and it's like, okay, they have that zeal, that fire, which is so great, and you want to have that passion when you're evangelizing to someone, but they don't have a proper understanding of who God is yet, or they haven't fully experienced him. And so you're sharing so many things with someone, and you might end up confusing them more than sharing the good news and then sharing the gospel. And so that is immediately something that my mind goes to, just because I've heard so many stories of people trying to share their faith or trying to share their testimonies and things that they've walked through and experienced, but they still haven't fully healed from it, they still haven't fully forgiven the person, or just haven't, that season hasn't closed in their life yet. And so they could distort someone's view of God and affect how they receive him because they haven't fully healed or haven't fully finished the process of healing. So, and the third question is starting to talk about lament. The end of it says, is lament something you were familiar with before this class or practiced before? Yes, I would not call myself an expert on lament. I remember my church has done sermons on it before, and I remember being in high school hearing about it for the first time, in 252 actually, specifically for the first time. And I remember I was like, wow, never heard this before. Started to make sense. And I would say it's not something that I actively engage in very frequently. I think, I cry out to God a lot. I don't think I do it in the steps that are given to us for lament, but I engage in it and I practice it. And so I am familiar with it. Would not say I'm an expert by any means, but I've heard about it, and the readings and everything has opened my eyes to it a bit more, which I'm very grateful for. And then the fourth question is, how would we explain the process of lament to someone we're trying to help? And I think the document that we were given that lays out all the 4 steps of lament lays it out perfectly. It says, call out to God, tell God about your pain, ask God for help, and affirm your trust in God, which I think puts it in the best, simplest, most easy terms, which is great for anytime you're trying to explain to someone, because we all call it to God at some point in our lives. I think we all reach a point where we're so down low and we're so just bottom of the barrel that we have nothing to do except call it to God, and we have no idea if he's going to answer. We of course know that he does, but a non-believer or someone who's very new in their faith, they're just crying out to him and they don't know what to do. And so I would best explain this process to someone as the same way that you kind of go to a friend. I think of so many times where I've encountered conflict and I'll go to my friends and I'm calling out to them like, hey, can you come just listen to me? Can I just talk to you for a second? And I tell them about what I'm going through. I tell them about my pain. And then I wait for them to give me advice, and I wait for them to give me their input. And then we end that conversation stronger as friends, stronger in the relationship that we have, which is crazy because it's the same thing with God, and we often don't do that because we don't always see him as a friend, but he is our friend. And so that's immediately what I think of and how to explain it, The same way you go to your best friends for help or to get things explained or just to vent a lot of times is the same way that I would explain it, in a biblical sense of what lament is and how you pray and how you do that. And so the last question is if there's anything interesting that we've learned so far in classes or something that was particularly stirring. I don't have anything crazy per se. I've enjoyed learning, and I've enjoyed, I love the topic of freedom, and so I love that we're talking about it. And I love that we're going through Know God, Find Freedom, all the steps of the church, which is really cool. And so, yeah, I don't have any big questions, but that's my video diary.